You step inside. The first thing you notice is the space, not the absence of furniture. There is furniture. Everything required, nothing excessive. Not the absence of objects. There are objects, chosen and placed, each one occupying its position, with the specific confidence of something that belongs here and nowhere else. What you notice is something more precise than emptiness. It is the absence of the unresolved, the thing kept just in case, the thing waiting to become something, the thing that arrived and was never quite decided about. You have been in Western homes that looked clean. This is different. A clean home is a home where the things have been tidied. This is a home where the categories of thing that require tidying were never allowed to accumulate. The distinction is invisible until you are standing in the result of it. You move through the rooms slowly. The kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, the small room at the end of the corridor that, in the homes you came from, had become a storage space almost without anyone deciding it should be. Here it is simply a room. Japan does not have a decluttering movement. It does not need one. The objects that the West accumulates and then must address through systems and strategies and weekends of sorting, these objects were never allowed to enter in the first place. Not through discipline, through a specific relationship with ownership that the Japanese have held and refined and passed from kitchen to kitchen and wardrobe to wardrobe for generations. Danshari, the philosophy of refusing, disposing, and separating from things, is not a trend. It is the cultural expression of an understanding so old it has no founding moment, that everything you keep costs something, not only the space it occupies, the attention required to manage it, the guilt of not using it, the low-level visual noise of its presence in a room that is trying to rest. 15 things. 15 categories of object that Japanese homes, not dramatically minimalist homes, ordinary Japanese homes, do not contain. Each one absent not because it was removed, but because it was understood, at the point of potential entry, to cost more than it was worth. Here is what is missing, and what its absence produces. Open the bathroom cabinet and you will not find them. The row of medicines bought for one specific illness and kept indefinitely afterward. The cough syrup from 2 winters ago. The antihistamine purchased for a trip that is now expired by 14 months. The topical cream for a condition that resolved itself. The packet of something that came free with a purchase and was kept because throwing away something that cost nothing seemed wasteful. In Japan, medicine is purchased for a specific illness and discarded when the illness is resolved. The cabinet contains what is currently being used and nothing that might be useful. The distinction between those two categories is the entire point. The Western medicine cabinet is a museum of past illnesses and anticipated future ones. It produces a low-level anxiety every time it is opened. The checking, the calculating, the not quite deciding. Japan's cabinet produces nothing when it is opened except what was reached for. She has a knife. Several knives, in fact. Well-chosen, well-maintained, each one suited to a specific task in the way that a good knife is suited to all tasks a knife should do. She does not have the avocado slicer, the mango cutter, the strawberry huller, the egg separator that does what a shell does more efficiently, the apple corer that does what a knife does with one additional motion, the sandwich maker that produces the sandwich format available only in a specific shape, and only if the sandwich is exactly the right thickness. These objects each solved a problem that did not exist before the object was marketed as the solution. Japan's kitchen contains what cooking requires. The single-use gadget represents a category of purchase driven by the desire for ease rather than the experience of difficulty, and the objects it produces occupy space, require washing, and are used on average fewer than 5 times before they join the drawer of things that are kept, because discarding them acknowledges the purchase was a mistake. You will not find the stationary bike in the corner of the bedroom, the yoga mat rolled against the wall behind the door, the set of resistance bands in a bag on the floor, the pull-up bar still in its packaging because the door frame turned out to be the wrong width. A study by the fitness equipment industry found that the average home exercise machine is used regularly for fewer than 6 weeks after purchase. After that, it transitions through a predictable sequence, used occasionally, used rarely, used not at all, kept just in case motivation returns, and finally repurposed as a surface for drying laundry or hanging clothes that did not make it back to the wardrobe. Japan's exercise is built into the movement of the day, the walk to the station, the stairs, the carrying, the standing. The body is moved continuously through the ordinary actions of a life, structured around movement, rather than periodically and guiltily through equipment purchased as a substitute for that structure. The objects left by abandoned fitness intentions are among the most expensive items in most Western homes when measured against the rate of their actual use, and among the most space-consuming, and among the most effective at producing the specific guilt of an investment in a future self that has not yet arrived. She walks. She moves through her day in the way that the body was designed to move through a day, and the corner of the bedroom is simply the corner of the bedroom. It arrived from someone who meant well. It was not something you would have chosen. You thanked the giver with genuine warmth, and then it entered the apartment, where it has occupied a shelf or a drawer or the back of a cupboard ever since. Not because it is valued, but because releasing it feels like a statement about the relationship that gave it. In Japan, the gift that does not belong in the life is released without guilt, because the gift's purpose was the giving, the moment of the giving, not the permanent integration of the object into the recipient's home, the vase that is not your vase. The figurine from a trip you did not take. The decorative item in a style that has nothing to do with any surface in your apartment. These do not stay. They were received with gratitude. They were released with equal care. The relationship that produced them is unaffected. Not the clothes you wear, the clothes kept for the body you had or the body you plan to have, the size that fits the version of you that is either past or future, occupying space in the present, where the clothes you actually wear are trying to hang. There is a specific quality of feeling that arrives every morning when the wardrobe is opened, and the first thing encountered is something that cannot be worn. Not a dramatic feeling, a small one. The slight weight of the reminder that the body is not where it was, arriving before the day has asked for a single thing. The cortisol research this series has documented suggests that the not noticing does not mean the not experiencing. Japan's wardrobe contains what fits today, not as an unkindness to the past or the future, as a practical acknowledgement that the wardrobe is for the person currently inhabiting the body that will be dressed from it each morning. The clothes that fit tomorrow's body can be purchased when tomorrow's body arrives. The wardrobe is not a record of who you have been or a promise about who you will be. It is a function, and a function that works opens every morning to what can be worn rather than what is being kept. 3 bottles of the same shampoo at different stages of depletion, 2 moisturizers that are almost the same, the conditioner from the hotel that came home in a bag, the nail polish in 17 shades of colors that overlap. The mechanism that produces this accumulation is well documented. Purchasing before the current one is finished, buying because it was on sale, accepting what arrived in a gift set of which only one item was wanted, keeping the travel-sized version because it is too small to seem worth discarding. Each of these individual acts is entirely reasonable. Their cumulative effect is the bathroom shelf that requires rearranging each time something is reached for, and that contributes, in the specific way that unresolved visual information contributes, to the ambient cognitive load of the space. Japan's bathroom shelf contains what is being used, one of each. Not because there is a rule against multiples, but because the relationship with purchase that Shun and Montanai produce does not generate the accumulation that requires a rule to address. The cosmetics are purchased when needed, used completely, and replaced. The system is unremarkable. The bathroom shelf it produces is unremarkable. And the morning that begins in an unremarkable, uncluttered bathroom begins differently from the morning that begins in a shelf that must be navigated. She does not have the drawer that contains the instruction manual for the microwave she bought 8 years ago, the warranty card for a phone no longer owned, the receipt for something returned so long ago the shop itself no longer exists, the magazine kept for the article that will definitely be reread, the bill from a utility that has since been moved online. Japan's relationship with paper is immediate. The paper serves its purpose and is released. The instruction manual is read or photographed and discarded. The receipt is filed digitally or not at all. The magazine is read and passed on. Nothing that has completed its purpose continues to occupy physical space. The drawer of unresolved paper does not form because paper is resolved at the moment of its arrival, rather than deferred until it becomes part of a pile that requires a Sunday afternoon. It exists in virtually every Western home. A drawer, or a box, or a bag, or a corner of a shelf, containing cables for devices no longer owned, chargers for phones replaced years ago, adapters for countries never visited, earphones that stopped working but were kept in case they started again. The dead cable drawer is an archaeology of past technology. It is never opened for use, only for the occasional excavation that produces the same result each time. None of these are for anything current. Japan does not keep the cable when the device leaves. The cable leaves with the device, or separately, through the specific electronic recycling infrastructure that Japan has maintained for precisely this reason. 14 mugs for a household of 2. The novelty mug from a place visited once. The mug received as a gift that was too ugly to use and too specific to donate easily. The set of 4 mugs from a sale, one of which is the right size and 3 of which are not. The commemorative mug. The mug that is so large it can only be used for soup and is therefore used for nothing. The mug collection is not really about mugs. It is about the accumulation of small decisions not made. The mug not donated because that required finding a donation point. The mug not discarded because that seemed wasteful. The mug not assessed because assessing it would require admitting it should not be there. Each individual mug represents a moment when the easier option was to put it in the cupboard. 14 mugs is 14 easier options, compounding into a cupboard that does not close properly, and a morning that begins with moving things to reach the one that is actually wanted. Japan uses what is used. The mugs in this kitchen are the mugs that are reached for in the morning. There are 4 of them, enough for company, not more than the morning requires. The cupboard that holds them closes without rearranging. The morning that begins at this cupboard begins with the mug, not with the management of the mugs. The china service that appears twice a year. The crystal glasses used at Christmas and stored for the remaining 50 weeks. The serving dishes that belong to a version of the household that hosts formal dinner parties. A version that has not materialized in the 11 years since the crockery was purchased. Japan uses what it owns. The best bowl is the bowl used this morning. Not because Japan cannot distinguish between everyday and formal. It can, with considerably more precision than most Western cultures, but because the philosophy of seikatsu, the quality of daily life, insists that the quality of the ordinary day matters as much as the quality of the exceptional occasion. The everyday bowl is chosen with care. The everyday cup is the cup worth using. The investment in quality is an investment in the daily experience rather than the occasional one. The good crockery that is never used occupies 3 forms of cost simultaneously. The money spent on it that is not being enjoyed, the space it occupies that is not being used for anything that is being enjoyed, and the implicit depreciation of the everyday object. The suggestion, encoded in the hierarchy of the cupboard, that the daily meal is not worth the good plate. Japan declines all 3 costs. The good plate is the plate used today. Under the sink, 3 different bathroom cleaners, 2 floor cleaners, a glass cleaner, a descaler, a mold treatment, a fabric softener that was discontinued and replaced with a different one before the first was finished, a drain unblocker purchased once and not needed again, and 4 sponges in various states of use. Japan's cleaning is done with fewer, better chosen products used completely before being replaced. The accumulation under the sink is not the result of cleaning more. It is the result of buying without finishing, purchasing without purpose, keeping without using. The Japanese under sink contains what cleans the home, nothing that might clean the home under different circumstances. She has books, not many, the ones read, the one being read now, the 2 that are genuinely next, not the 30 that were read once and kept, because a person who keeps books is a certain kind of person, and releasing them would be a statement about that identity. This is the category that the previous items have been building toward. The object kept not for its use, but for its identity function. The 30 books on the shelf are not 30 sources of knowledge available for revisiting. They are 30 pieces of evidence about who the owner is or aspires to be. Kept not because they will be reread, but because releasing them raises an uncomfortable question about what remains when the book is gone. Japan's answer is that the reading remains in the person, in the changed thinking, in what was understood and integrated. The book was the vehicle. Keeping the vehicle does not preserve the journey. Japan's relationship with books is specific. The book is read, and if it will not be reread, it is passed on to a library, a friend, a second-hand shop. Nothing stays merely because releasing it raises a question about who you are without it. The answer is, you are the person who read it. the Tupperware drawer. Lids that fit nothing. Containers that fit nothing with a lid. Containers that nest but cannot be separated. Containers that warped in the dishwasher and no longer seal. The matching set purchased in good faith, from which 3 pieces have been lost and the remaining pieces are functionally a collection of mismatched singles. Japan stores what is stored in containers that work. When a container fails its function, it is replaced. The drawer that contains functional containers contains only functional containers, opens without avalanche, and closes without the specific violence of the Tupperware drawer that everyone in the West knows and nobody discusses. The universal category. The tool bought for one job and kept for the theoretical next job. The spare part for an appliance replaced 3 years ago. The seasonal item occupying year-round space. The camping equipment for the camping that has not happened. The sports bag for the sport that is no longer played. The camping equipment was purchased for a specific trip. A second trip was discussed. The equipment was kept in anticipation. 3 years later, it occupies the back of a cupboard, cannot be accessed without moving other things, and will be kept in case of a fourth trip that has not been planned. In Japan, the relationship between an object and its use is active rather than aspirational. If the use is real and recurring, the object stays. If it has not occurred in the last year and there is no specific plan for it, the object does not have a claim on permanent residence. The camping equipment can be borrowed, rented, or repurchased when the specific trip that requires it is actually planned. The space it occupies in the interim costs more than the repurchase would. The in-case item is released not with the declaration that camping will never happen, but with the understanding that when it does, the equipment will be available through other means, and in the meantime, the cupboard will open without an avalanche. The candle that was never lit because it was too nice to burn. The figurine from a market that seems significant in the moment and is less significant in the apartment. The decorative bowl that holds keys because it has become a key bowl by default. The print that was put up quickly and has been in the slightly wrong position ever since. Japan's decorative objects are few, chosen slowly, placed deliberately. Each one has a specific location that was considered before the object was purchased. The wall is not covered because there was wall to cover. The shelf does not fill because there was shelf to fill. The space is allowed to be space, which is not empty, but which is not required to justify itself with objects. You have walked through the apartment, you are standing in the kitchen, and the countertop is clear, and the cupboard closes properly, and nothing is waiting to be decided about. 15 absences, each one producing the quality of space that you noticed when you stepped inside, not the emptiness of a home, with nothing but the completeness of a home that contains exactly what it requires and nothing that it doesn't. The objects that Japan never kept are not dramatic objects. They are ordinary objects. The medicine that was not discarded. The gift that was not released. The cable that outlived its device. The exercise bike kept for 6 years after 6 weeks of use. 15 categories of ordinary thing that entered ordinary homes and were never resolved. Not because the people in those homes were careless, but because each object presented a decision that was easier to defer than to make, and the deferral repeated until the accumulation was the condition of the home. Japan did not solve this with a decluttering weekend. It solved it at the point of entry, by maintaining a relationship with the object before it arrived rather than after it had accumulated into a problem. Tonight, one object. Not 15, one. Find the thing that has been waiting to be decided about for longer than it has been used. The medicine from the previous winter. The cable for a phone you no longer own. The mug that has never been used. The book finished 3 years ago and not opened since. Make the decision. Release it. Not because the object is worthless, because keeping it costs something that releasing it does not. And the home that contains 15 fewer unresolved things is not 15 objects lighter. It is 15 decisions quieter. And a room that does not require management is, for the first time, simply a room. She has not done a declutter in 11 years. She has never needed to, because nothing that should not be here was ever allowed to arrive. Share this with someone who has been meaning to sort through the spare room for 6 months. They may not need a weekend. They may need one object, tonight,